Well, Joe Rotella is our technology guru, and he is here with a fantastic Christmas ornament project. And this looks like a snowflake, Joe, a little bit more than an ornament.
It does, and look how fine and detailed it is. It's so accurate. There's actually 3 layers here. It's stitched down the center, and when we fold them, now it's a little fiddly, but look how this thing just pops and starts to come to life.
That's how you get that 3D ornament.
Yeah, and look how cool.
That is cool.
You have to fuss with it a little bit.
And I can totally see that you wouldn't have to use this as a Christmas ornament. You could use this as a decoration for a party. You could do a whole garland of them.
Oh, and any size, too.
Yes.
Small, large, and I think if you mix the sizes, that would be spectacular.
And you have promised me that this is easy.
It is so easy.
Okay, well, why don't we get started then?
So I'm using Kaleidoscope software, and traditionally I've printed images, but now we're going to actually create that. And what we need to do is start with a wedge shape. I would start with a circle. This one was a circle with 16 points. We don't really need a fancy edge because we're going to cut it out. We're going to make that edge. And the next thing we want to do...
And this is just all stuff that's in the software.
It's all built in.
Great.
We're going to pull in just a white shape, just a plain old white shape. And that white shape is going to give us a background that we can work on top of. Okay. Now the problem is you've got white on white, and we can't see that. So in here we just go and say, what color do we want? Kind of like the window. Think of it as a template. It's like a window that this case is green. It's showing you a little bit of the white square, but then it's showing you the bright white where that wedge shape is. And now we want to print out this wedge, because once we have a whole set of those wedges, then we can doodle on them. And to do that, we have to say what color we want to print in. So we want to print in black. So I'm going to jump all the way down here to black, and we'll say print wedges.
And then I know that we have one here, right, that we've already printed out. And the thing that's so fantastic is that if you're at all confused, all the written instructions will be on the website.
Absolutely.
So once we have our wedges printed out, what are we doing?
Well, you're going to doodle inside each wedge. And what I like to do at home, we had some friends over and we actually cut them up.
Had a doodling party?
We did.
I want to come to that party.
It's kind of fun to see exactly what pops out. So we had some different doodles here, and you'll get some different effects. The key here is that the doodling has to touch either side of that wedge.
Why?
Because these wedges are, in this case, there's 16 of them glued around, and if the sides don't touch, you'll just have pizza wedges that fall apart.
I see. Because we're creating a kaleidoscope of them, they have to sort of hold together as a single piece, which is why this looked like a snowflake.
Exactly.
So it's the same, sort of the snowflake theory, like when you're cutting a snowflake, the edges have to touch.
And you can see the difference here. Like this one, see the tree on the top, how they're not touching the top, and look at that lace-like effect you got all around the edge.
That's beautiful.
But if you end up touching the top, like that circular one, you're going to get more like this flower effect, which this would be great like for a garden party.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Something out on the deck, you know, hang a whole bunch of flowers, cut them in different colors. So once you have something doodled like this, then you need to scan it to get it back into the software.
Okay. So you're going to scan it back in, and I can see that you could have a lot of fun with all sorts of different friends or your family, your kids, whatever, making lots of different kinds of doodles.
It's true, and this is, I have a whole bunch scanned in here, and when you bring them in, don't worry if they're, you know, like you can see here the scan is upside down. You know?
It's funny because it looks like snakes when I look at it here, but then when I see the finished kaleidoscope over on the side, it's totally different.
So we're just going to spin it around to kind of line it up. And
that's beautiful, like
you
a
can
stained glass window.
Now, if I resize too much, see how the black is inside?
And you see it up in the right-hand corner exactly what you're going to get, that preview that you just made big for us, so that you don't have to guess at what it's going to look like or if you've lined it up properly.
So you make it just a hair bigger, and this was why it was so fun to have so many different shapes, because we could see some we liked, some we didn't. You're going to have to play with your doodles. This one, as an example, as it is right now, it would be hard to sew together, because see the white in the middle? There's no place to sew.
I didn't even think about that. So your doodle needs to have a large space in the center for you to be able to sew along with touching the sides.
And that space in the center is down in the bottom of that wedge shape.
Oh, the bottom of the wedge, okay.
So basically you just keep playing until you say, okay, I've got there, look at that. Now we've got a connected center.
So if I look in the upper right corner, I can see that I now have enough space where I'm going to be able to sew. And I see that you keep rotating that so that the pieces all connect.
Yep, exactly.
So that we have, again, that beautiful snowflake that sort of comes out.
Exactly. And then once I have that all done, I'm going to save this. And this produces a bitmap image, but we need a vector-based image. So I went online and I used a free package to convert it to a vector-based image.
And you put it on a USB drive for me. I like crafting with a friend because you always get to play with each other's toys. So now I'm just going to take this USB and I'm going to pop it right into my cutting machine. And then I'm going to tell the machine that I want to use a pattern and it's from my saved data. It's on my USB thumb drive. It's gonna tell me that it's retrieving it, which of course is helpful because when I'm wondering what the heck's happening, I actually can learn what it is. And I'm gonna scroll through until I find, there you go, flower ornament. It's right there, and it's beautiful. So that's just what I want. I'm gonna hit okay. Now, if we actually resized this, so I think it would be cool to make, because you can make the ornament any size you want, and I'm thinking, what if we had a huge one that filled an entire 12 by 12 sheet of paper? Wouldn't that be awesome? So then you can cut a whole bunch of them.
Oh, and big, I like
and make
big.
them big. Oh, me too, you know? I'm from New York City. We like our buildings big and everything else. So here we go. I've got this. I like it. I'm gonna hit okay, and I have a cutting mat here that I've already loaded with some white cardstock. You could cut out of all sorts of fancy paper though, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any of your scrapbook papers or anything like that. I'm gonna load it on in there. I'm gonna hit okay again. I wanna make sure that my blade depth is set correctly. And I think that for cardstock of this weight, I'll probably set it to a 5, maybe a 5.5 if I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Actually, let's put it down at a 5. That feels good to me. And you have to, of course, test with your own machine, you know, and get used to it, and every cardstock's different, and depending how much you've used your blade and all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna hit cut, and then we are off to the races once I hit the start button. And now while this is cutting, I know, Joe, you're gonna talk us through a little bit of the sewing, because you said you're not a sewer.
I am not a sewer, and my mom gave me a sewing machine in 1982, and it was already 20 years old. So I work with this ancient machine.
It's one of those heavy metal machines.
Oh, it is. But in this case, these are 3 layers thick, so just take 3 layers of scrap of the same cardstock,
right.
Run it through your machine.
I know you have one here, which you were already testing with the sewing,
exactly,
right?
and look at the different stitches per inch. So if you do too close, like 10 or 12 per inch, it almost is just going to cut right through the paper.
Oh, okay.
So I would do about
it's
6
perforating it, right?
Exactly.
Or something.
So
I
do
see.
about 6 stitches per inch, and that'll still give you enough to hold it together and enough paper in between each stitch to really bind it.
You know what I love about you, Joe, is you're such a craft experimenter. So if you have this question about how do you stitch through paper, of course, I would just go with the cut and then ruin, you know, what I'd already done. Yeah. But you're smart enough to know you're going to take some test paper, try it out, the same thickness, the same weight, right? Give it a test, and then, of course, increase your stitch length. That's going to help. And then what do we do after we have stitched it? We do the folding?
No, actually, be sure you lay the 3 together.
Okay.
You could do 4 if you want more leaves inside the ornament. Lay them together. Be sure you have a center part, and just stitch. And I did the usual, ahead a little bit, back to knot it, then ahead. Got all done, trimmed it up, tied it, and now you're ready to go. You just fold.
So now the machine is finished cutting. I'm gonna go ahead and unload my mat. I'm gonna give it a bend to start peeling up that cut. I'm gonna take my spatula tool to get it on up. Now, while I'm peeling this off, Joe, will you give us some tips on fluffing out your ornaments when you fold them?
Well, and even before fluffing, look at the goodness outside that cutout, because now you have a fantastic stencil in some cases.
Oh yeah, and I know that we
that
have one down here that you can see that is completely, that's the scrap, which you told me when I said, oh, is this garbage? Should we throw it away? You said, no, I'm going to use it as a stencil.
No. Well, because I'm a crafting hoarder. I am, so I
all?
save everything. Now, when you fluff these up, like this one's exceptionally, you know, tricky, just because all these little fine points get caught one inside the other. So you're going to want to play with it a little bit to get it nice, get a nice shape all the way around. But I think they're just, look at how spectacular they look. Oh, I love it.
Look at that. It's big and beautiful. And I think you could use like any of this heart shape or any of these other little leftovers as embellishments.